sir, please. Can we have a warm round of applause for him, please?
Good afternoon. I've been given the tough task of hosting a post-lunch session. I think the biryani and the other great food that we all ate needs some digestion, and the mind should still be active. And I hope that we can have an invigorating discussion in this CEO's forum, and I'm really looking forward to it personally. So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the distinguished CEOs to Reimagining India at 2047. This forum has been conceived as a platform to convene visionary leaders and industry peers, pioneers, to collectively deliberate on shaping India's trajectory as we approach the centenary of our independence. As we have seen over the past decade, India has undergone a remarkable transformation. In 2014, India was ranked as the 10th largest economy, and today we stand as world's fastest growing and one of the most resilient economies with a nominal GDP of over $4.2 trillion. The journey of India began in 1947 when the economic activity was at its bare minimum, where the societal culture was not as developed. And today I'm very proud to say that Indians are not only leading business worldwide, but they are also become change makers in the way business is being done all over the world. As APJ Abdul Kalam once said, the future of India lies in the dreams of its people. And I believe that Indians have started dreaming big, and I think they have started dreaming much bigger than anyone else in the world. This forum is not merely a platform for discussion, but a call to action, an opportunity to align corporate ambition with national priorities, and to chart strategies that will accelerate India's journey towards becoming a more resilient, inclusive, and globally respected nation by 2047. On behalf of the Indian Chamber of Commerce, I welcome you all again, and thank you for participating in the ICC Global Business Summit. And I would love to see the great takeaways that everyone can have, the many nations that are participating, the many delegates and participants that have come together to honor and make this summit a much more successful one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neotia, for delivering such an insightful address. We will now move on to the core of today's forum, a high-powered panel discussion. This session will be moderated by our very own young and dynamic leader, Mr. Parthiv Neotia again. And he brings with him a strong background in business leadership, innovation, and enterprise building, making him a perfect moderator to steer today's dialogue. Joining him, we have an esteemed panel of speakers. May I request each of them to please come up on the dais as I call out their names. Mr. Ankur Patni, Vice Chairman, representing Iron Exchange India Limited and Chairman ICC's National Expert Committee on Water, a leader in sustainable water and environment management solution, driving innovation for a cleaner and a greener tomorrow. Sir. Mr. Nayan Srivastava, Founding Managing Partner and CEO, Rootbridge Capital, a finance professional bringing deep expertise in capital management and strategic investment. Thank you, sir. Ms. Roshika Singh, Senior Country Officer, IFSC World Bank, offering a global outlook on investment, sustainable development, and inclusive growth. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. K. Karthikeyan, Vice President, Invest India, representing the government's initiatives in fostering investment, entrepreneurship, and ease of doing business. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Vivek Bhatia, Managing Director and CEO, TKIL Industries, and industry leader, bringing valuable insights on growth, competitiveness, and future business strategies. And I would like to invite Mr. Neotia once again to kindly join the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our distinguished panel with a warm round of applause. And I would now want Mr. Neotia to take charge of this much anticipated session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay, great. Um, so India at 2047 is a story that we've been discussing for the last couple of years, particularly since the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, uh, put in the vision of a Viksit Bharat by 2047, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Um, I would like to start with Mr. Karthikeyan. As a representative of Invest India, uh, which in many ways represents India, its position with the global investors, with many nations. How do you see 2047? What do you imagine India to be, and how can other countries play a role towards making India a Viksit Bharat?
Sure. Thank you, Parthiv. Um, Reimagining 2047, we can already see some green shoots. I see maybe in the next about 7 to 8 years' time, if we were to give this kind of a time period, I'll tell you where I'm coming in from. India will be soon looking at how the US markets were thus far in terms of a free market space, free enterprises coming in, the ease of doing business being the key factor for it. There's a rush of those kind of sectors, emerging sectors. It's no longer like one of our friends was asking that, do we have air conditioning here in India? It's no longer a land of snake charmers or elephants. We have we have really gone miles and miles now. Very recently, about 2 days ago, we had companies like ASML coming in talking about fab. What are we trying to create out here? So there is an entire ecosystem building that is happening today in India with a very resurgent India. That's what I see. We the time period of about 7 years, if you were to see, I was counting it from the point of view of FDI. FDI, I'm sure Roshni will agree with me. If you were to look it up in the block of about 7 8 years, moves up by a certain degree, say about 20 billion, 40 billion. That's the kind of rate at which FDI flows into the country, and we are accelerating at this point in time. You can see the kind of reforms that have happened over time, the kind of digital space that we have occupied across states. Today, you are witness to Rajasthan and Haryana who are taking up space by paying money. Government paying money to be at an event like this is testimony to the fact that states have become absolutely competitive. The number of let's say approvals and things like that you needed to, India is a very complex country to navigate through when it comes to business, because every state has its own let's say cultural, regional kind of dynamics. A lot of that have perhaps been level playing today, in that sense that each of them are vying for a space to attract investors. 2047 is not too far. Maybe about 8 years down the line, I can see there's a fleet of these kind of companies looking at space, looking at defense, looking at textiles. These are all very mature markets. So for me, I see that this young generation, in fact, even yesterday we were having a debate about this back in Delhi. Just to give about 30 more seconds to it, that lower than 35 age group, what are the kind of laws that they want it to be done away with? That if you submit a form today, do you really get a land on your own name? Can that kind of a transparent system be out there? They're building systems like that today as we speak. So I'm very confident that we are moving towards something that's going to be very positive in that sense.
From Invest India's point of view, is there a number that you have in mind in terms of what do you think will be the GDP of India at that point of time, and what do you think will be the GDP per capita at that point of time?
I wouldn't be able to tell you the GDP per capita, but I think the rate at which we are hovering right now, I think we'll be still marching at about between 8 and 9. Now between 6 and 8, I think it'll be about 8 and 9.
Roshika, I want to move to you on the same question, with a different lens. World Bank, IFC have many countries in which they can invest. Why are they looking at India? And what portion of the global allocation comes to India? And where do you see that going forward? And what is your view on, I know it's been too many questions, but if you can answer it in one breath. And what do you think about India 2047?
Thank you. I think it's a very ambitious and dynamic vision, Viksit Bharat. And I think as the IFC World Bank Group, we definitely believe in it. We are here to be partners with the government of India and the private sector. More importantly, I think the private sector. IFC works predominantly with the private sector, and India is actually our largest portfolio globally. It represents 11% of IFC's global program, which is significant. We're in 186 countries, and 11% is in India alone today. We invest in sectors from the financial sector, manufacturing, agri-services, infrastructure, as well as have some PPPs as well. And we do see growth. Our own portfolio has grown fourfold in the last 3 years. This last fiscal year that ended on June 30th, we invested $5.4 billion in India. We are actually also seeing an increase in an ask for equity as well. So again, our portfolio right now represents about 30% equity, which is much higher than the rest of IFC, where it's closer to 19%. So I think if we look at just the numbers of our program, we definitely see that India is one of the countries. I mean, we see it as the future. Our global head Mukhtar Diop was here just a week ago, and announced that we'll be doing at least 10 billion a year in the next 2 to 3 years. So we see the scope for that, and I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I want to have a follow-up question on that. Today, the cost of borrowing in Western markets, particularly the US, is significantly cheaper, given their income is in dollars, their costs are in dollars, the cost of borrowing is in dollars. The moment we extrapolate that to the Indian market, the cost of borrowing is substantially higher from that baseline. How important do you think is a low cost of borrowing to ensure better economic output and also the company's ability to reinvest that capital back into their business? Because ultimately, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. And how can World Bank play a role into bringing that kind of a cost structure to more underdeveloped or developing markets like India?
So I agree. I think cost of borrowing is an issue across the board. As I see, we do local currency loans as well as US dollars. So I think we've seen more and more of a demand for local currency, not only in India, but I think globally. It's important to be able to reinvest. But again, I can speak as a development finance institution. We really come with more than just the financing, right? There's what we call additionality, whether it's helping with a decarbonization process. So you could be a chemicals manufacturing entity that's looking to decarbonize your process. So we bring this kind of additional advisory with the finance, and it's a critical piece of what our clients are asking for. More and more, we are actually not seeing the conversations being on the cost of borrowing, but it's about what comes with that. I think one more piece that I wanted to mention, and my fellow speaker mentioned the states as well. We are also now starting to lend at a subnational state and municipal level as well, because we've seen that if states and munis are able to borrow commercial capital, we can bring down the cost of borrowing, we can improve services, and we can reduce the burden on the central government budget as well. So this is a big trend that we're seeing. We're hoping. We've just done our first signing with a urban local body in Visakhapatnam a week ago. It was the first time in India that a ULB actually borrowed on commercial terms. It was a $60 million loan amount, and we're hoping to see much more of this for wastewater treatment, solid waste management across the board.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Nayan, I want to move to you next. Indian equities market has taken a very dynamic shift, particularly in the last 5 years. There has been a lot more money that has come in. Very recently, there's been a lot of money that has also gone out by the sense that we get or from the data that we read. As an investor in both private sector and public sector, how important do you think is the public market for India's vision of 2047? And how do you see the shift in investor profile from FDI to more homegrown local capital becoming more available, investing in the public markets?
Thanks, Pratif. I think there's always two sides to the story. To answer your first question with respect to public markets, I mean, the public markets is the backbone of the economy. So I think that's a really important part to look at, to think about. As you mentioned, we actually invested Rootbridge in the public markets and the private markets. So from that perspective, I think one thing that we as Indians can be proud of is that we do have a strong local economy. A simple example is in August when we had the effect of the tariffs, we had a short-term correction, but then the market was resilient enough, and that's just proof that we have a local economy, local demand. I always have two hats. I have a hat as a foreign investor, and I have a hat as an Indian and a hat as an ICC. So from that perspective, it's sometimes difficult to see that the education or the awareness of India as an investment on the investment map globally, especially in my region, in the DACH, so German and Switzerland, is not that aware yet. So that's something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it more aware. But to go back to your question regarding the public markets, I think there's going to be, it's not made very easy, if I'm completely honest. So I am Indian, my business partners are Indian, so we know how to do it. We've been doing it since 2008. But if you were an asset manager looking at the Indian markets, you are tied to a certain blue chip names. And I think that is something, working with the government, is something that we need to change. I mean, it's not made easy to invest into India. And I think once those deregulations or reforms happen, then there's going to be further capital. I'm not sure that's good from a valuation perspective, so with my investor hat on. But I think we need to deregulate. We need to have reforms to make it easier to come to India and make it easier to invest in India.
Thank you. And I'm going to get your response on this before I move to Ankur and Vivek. How can Invest India solve, in a way, this problem and ensure FDI interest increases in India? Or is there an alternative strategy for India to ensure that its capital is invested in India and remains in India?
Yeah, I think that's very pertinent to state. And the way Nayan said, I like that. Okay, let's look at what it is today here in India. Government does that which it is good doing at, create policies that are good for industry and good for the citizenry and for businesses to happen. So it couldn't do, or it does, it's not in their DNA to do marketing of all that it does. So you got a investment promotion agency like Invest India here, and our job out there is very clear. The mandate is to get FDI into the country, and we believe states are our partners. Any company that wants to come and invest in India naturally will be investing in A or B or C state. So we facilitate this entire process. There could be, I would say, 40, 50 sectors, and it can take us all over the place. So we have got a strategy around it. We see that close to about 9 odd sectors bring close to about 65% to 70% of the FDI into this country. There are about 300 companies globally. Year on year, they continue to invest in India. Close to about 80% of the FDI that happens in India happens only to these 300 odd companies. So we have got such kind of analytics around it. We work with the states, with those top 3 priority sectors that the states have, to help them grow competitive. We become their extended arm. So it is not they versus us. And all of this is pro bono. So anything that comes to us, we in fact don't wait for it reactively. We go out there proactively to chase these companies wherever they are globally, and let them tell and actually let them know that timing couldn't be any better than what it is now. They may in fact even miss an entire revolution around the other day, what we were talking about AVGC. And they were saying the kind of movies, innovation that's happening around animation, and the kind of a policy that government is actually talking today. These are all young blood which is doing it. So we at Invest India are out here as an agency. As I said, we help right from the stage of an inquiry that comes to India, all the way hand holding them, site identification, until they are grounded, and life even thereafter. So aftercare. So please reach out to us if there is anything we can do. We should just, we all collectively work towards it. I would say that.
Parthiv, if I may, I completely agree with everything you said, and thank you for that. And I will actually reach out to you for some support, because we are facing the problem, especially in my region, Switzerland and Germany, that the market just doesn't know what the power of India is. And that's a message that as a private sector we are bringing out. I would love to have the support, of course, from the public sector. But for example, a perfect example is the TEPA agreement. It comes into force on the 1st of October. It's $100 billion over 15 years to be invested from Switzerland, Iceland, and Norway. and no one simply knows about it. So that's something I think from the private sector. I am issuing newspaper articles, but I think the government could support a little bit more as well.
Yeah, if you can just add to what he just said, this is about the FTA desk, this TIPA that is going to be announced 1st October onwards. So we still do not have a clue about how we are going to go about doing it. So Nayan and I think we can chat about it and figure out what we can come together to do.
I'm glad to announce that ICC has unlocked $100 billion of investment potential in India. Before the government did, so we can put that as part of our memo on social media. But just kidding. To his response, Ankur, he spoke about that, our job as government or government representatives is to build and create policies. I want to understand your perspective as a businessman in India. How far or what is the gap between announcing policies and on-ground implementation of those policies?
Well, all of us businessmen know that there is a gap, and sometimes it's more to do with the timing. And certainly, we see a lot of intent on the part of government in recent years to get these policies moving. There's a lot more planning which is happening now, which ensures that the gap between announcement and actual implementation of the ground is shortened, but it is not ideal as yet. I think one of the key reasons is the kind of vision that we see at the top is not necessarily percolating right down to the last level where the implementation or execution is happening. So the entire chain of bureaucracy needs to be tuned in to the same vision and the same passion which we see at the top. The other issue is also when you are looking at policy which is intended for a social cause, and you expect the business to come in and support the social cause, there needs to be that commercial side of it also adequately represented. Sometimes that commercial contract, for example, is not tuned to what the businesses will be able to get funds from the banking sector. Sometimes it is to do with the pace at which the funds get released from the government, which is suboptimal because the businesses can't fund it endlessly. So there are several of these issues which you see that takes a lot of time, and that time is there's a finite limit to when that initiative loses steam. And that pace therefore needs to go up substantially so that we don't get lost. So I certainly see a lot of hope with the initiatives of the government that are now happening, that we see more increased pace of execution.
Vivek, what is your view on this? Do you feel that there's a huge gap between policy announcements and its on-ground implementation? And in your experience, has that improved over the last decade, or it remains still a challenge?
Yeah. Firstly, I'd just like to take a step back before I answer that. So I think it's really nice that we are talking about a longer horizon, because a lot of challenges that we have seen in India actually have been because for a long time we were very, very focused on very short-term topics and completely missing the big picture sometimes in the past. So I'm very happy we have this conversation now, which is happening everywhere around Viksit Bharat 2047, because that's a good horizon within which large countries like India can actually reinvent, reimagine, reshape, and transform. And India as a civilization, we know that at one point in time was the most dynamic and largest economy in the world. And I personally believe we are well on our path to reclaim that at some point in time, hopefully within our lives. Now, coming to your point on what's really happening on the ground, I think a lot is happening on the ground, and we are seeing a lot of translation of policy into outcomes. And let me just talk about a few areas where it's so visible. Look at digital payments ecosystem. India, before COVID, was not on the map. And today, by far, we are the undisputed leaders in the number of digital transactions happening anywhere in the world, in any country in the world. And people are completely gobsmacked when they feel that, when they come and see in India that, you can actually pay on the street, you can pay in a shop, you can pay, transact in a bank, all digitally through your phone, and that this is so pervasive. Look at what we have achieved on the electronics manufacturing side. I think in a very, very short time frame, we have actually built a very strong position, and we have leapfrogged over many other players in that space. Look at it on the infrastructure side. I think the amount of infrastructure we have built in terms of roads and railway network is unprecedented. And if you look at the railways itself, it's hard to imagine in a short time frame we have a nearly electrified, fully electrified, a fleet of rolling stock, which is a wonderful achievement given that, we have also gone from, I think, 20 or very small gigawatt capacity in renewables to now 250 odd gigawatts of capacity, one of the largest and most ambitious additions of renewable capacity anywhere in the world in such a time frame. So all of these, I think, are wonderful examples, and there are more, of where policy and consistent efforts have really translated into transformative outcomes on the ground. Of course, we are always hungry for more, dil mange more. We are never satisfied, and I think that is the great thing about being in India, that despite what we achieve, we are actually aspiring to do even bigger things. And that, I think, is great to see, because I see that in government, I see that at the state level, I see that at the central level, and most importantly, I see it in the entrepreneurs in India. And the fact that we have one of the most vibrant startup ecosystems in India today compared to anywhere in the world, a rising number of unicorns, is really testament to the spirit of Indian entrepreneurship. And I think that, to me, is the most promising part of India's economic growth story that has unfolded over the last decade and which will continue in the decades ahead.
Thank you, Vivek, for sharing your perspective. I wanted to move back to Roshika. India has currently created approximately 235 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2025, but it is also far ahead of what targets it had set for itself. And looking the way private sector is investing in renewables, I believe it's not only going to surpass it, one of the market leaders, at a global front. The second point of data, which I also wanted to mention, was something that Parth Jindal of JSW Group, who was here in the morning session, mentioned that one of the India's biggest reasons for trade deficit is its import of oil. How do you see these two factors playing in the next 20 years? And do you see World Bank playing a particularly important role in ensuring more aggressive investment towards renewable? Because there's, there are obviously two sides to the same coin, with respect to oil and renewables. So how do you see that with respect to India first, and then from the World Bank perspective?
Well, thank you for that question. I think so. In terms of, yes, renewables, I think as the World Bank Group, we have invested a fair amount. We've also worked on some interesting PPP type of projects. So, for example, the River Solar project in Madhya Pradesh, where we supported the transaction advisory to bring in international investors as well for the first time, to bring the price down of renewable close to coal. And what was interesting about that is we got a captive client, which is the Delhi Metro. So we now have Madhya Pradesh Solar being used for the Delhi Metro for 10 years. So we've tried to really also demonstrate projects, right? I think there's quite a lot has been achieved in the renewable space, and we've also looked at a broader definition. So to answer your question on sort of the balance, even when we talk about this area, we look at a much broader definition, looking at e-mobility, looking at platforms, looking at how what is in the e-mobility, even supply chain as well. And I think this is important for all of us to think about when we look at development in India. So again, I think looking at this space, we've talked a little bit about policy. I think policy has to come in tandem and hand in hand. So I'll give you an example. We recently signed 2 mandates to bring for e-buses at a state and municipal level. So with JBM and Greencell, where these are private sector entities, Greencell is backed by a fund, Eversource Fund from Singapore. But what was critical to enable us to bring and finance these fleets is that our big sister, the World Bank, IBRD, worked on a security payment mechanism with the government. They worked with the Ministry of Heavy Industries, and this was critical so that we knew that concessionaires would actually be paid in a timely way. So I think as a World Bank group, we are looking at some of these issues, and we are looking at it from both the policy side, where the bank, IBRD, looks at the policy that's needed, and we bring in the private sector. We are looking more and more to bring in co-investors with us. And I think what we call mobilization is a key cornerstone of our strategy now working in India, where I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic, and this is generally our approach.
Nan, you want to respond to that, or you have?
Oh, thanks, Rashika. I actually completely agree with what you're saying. It's always easy to point a finger at the government, which is not right, and we all actually play our own part in doing the right thing as when it comes to circularity and when it comes to renewable energy. In our portfolio, for example, in Rootbridge, we try and be zero emissions. So, for example, factories, manufacturing plants, all solar powered, self-sustained. I think everyone needs to do their part. Our pipeline, we try and do that. Our fund is even classified as an impact fund. So I think we all have our part to do, and I think it's not only the government but also the private sector.
Despite being an impact fund, you still want to make money, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So my question to you is that there's as a foreign investor, not as an Indian, I'm asking you, as a foreign investor, when you see a country as large as the United States playing such a volatile game with India on its trade tariffs, something that is going to probably continue over the next few months, but also there's no guarantee of it being a finite solution, even if there is one, because the way we have seen this trade war or tariff war play out, it seems like it's a very social media based war, but with actually it also happening not just a verbal spat, but it carries forward that message, something without much basis, without much thought. But do you see that to be a challenge when you invest in India? Because I would assume you would have a lot of global investors.
Good question, Parthiv. I mean, as a firm, excuse my bluntness, we couldn't care less, because India is such a large economy that, I mean, tariffs and something like that, we have such a large economy, like I mentioned earlier. What is a challenge is the investor side of things. Because unfortunately, every time something does happen in India, it's always negative press that comes, at least to our part of the world. So it's a challenge on the fundraising side, it's a challenge on the investor relations side. But as an investor into India, we have such a strong economy, and especially on the micro demographic change that's happening in India, I don't think we should be too worried about geopolitical risks.
To borrow words from him, Karthik, a question to you: if they can't care less about what Donald Trump does, should India?
No, I don't think US is even a matter occupying our mind space anymore. I think every time there's been a disruption, the market has evolved better. Disruptions always bring about the latent stuff. We are able to see FTAs actually getting enforced today with certain countries. You're seeing businesses much more, let's say, become fast, swift. People are having all these conversations, trying to see it's no more China +1, Taiwan +1, and all of that. You are able to see all of it moving left to right, right to left. So I think it's going to be also about a little regional blocks. I think we have come far too much here in business. We've got a goal 2047. I don't think we are think so much giving importance.
As a flag bearer of FDI in India, things like this, when Donald Trump wakes up and tweets that I don't like India and I'm going to do this, and
we did an analysis.
Is my best friend. How do investors respond to that? Because having a volatile US makes any economy that they are volatile to also very volatile. And the reason I'm pressing for a more specific answer is that we don't know, even if there is a deal, because the tariffs might go today, it might come back tomorrow, seeing the trend in which the government has been behaving in the United States?
See, the market forces will always derive what is competitiveness. Okay, so the competitive set of people are going to thrive, live, and do much beyond that. So they are always going to catapult at this point in time when there's disruption in the market. This is business pure play. Where it comes to politics and geopolitics in this new era that we are talking about, if we were to see, uh, we were doing an analysis and trying to see US was the biggest investor as a country in India last about 10 years. But last year it wasn't so. It doesn't even rank in the top 5 perhaps. So we are seeing a new world order in that sense. So there will be much more excitement in the days to come. I can promise you that. Yes, these little fixes will happen. It's like a balance sheet, on the left and right. That's what matters now. Business will still find a way like water to flow around and do it. And we are seeing that. Lesser known countries, Poland, they are trying to look at what they can do on the animation space with us, trying to invest in certain kind of centers that's going to build the future of how animation is going to look at. So yeah.
If I may just add,
Yeah, please.
I was asked exactly that same question. You won't be able to export more to US, but when you look at the macro picture, the world has a finite demand and it has a finite supply, right? And if one demand supply combination gets broken, that demand has to be serviced by some other supply, right? So obviously there will be some unserviced demand which was being catered to earlier, and that's really how the rewiring will happen in the world. So if certain markets step out and are no longer the destination, there will be other markets which will become the destination, because trade flows will rebalance ultimately. So I'm not, as a industrialist, as a person leading a large business, I'm not overly concerned.
Um,
Just
yeah, please.
add to that, and I think it's very pertinent because a lot of businesses which have a concentration and they are supplying largely to the US or buying largely from the US, and they would feel the heat for a period of time. But for a vast majority, they would look at this as an opportunity to broad base their markets and also broad base their supply chains. I think ultimately this disruption could end up being very good for us as we look at a much broader space, both politically and from a business point of view. We are seeing increasingly and on a day-to-day basis the improvements happening in terms of perceptions about India as we reach out, because this branding effort which we are trying to do in a lot of other countries has started to go up, both by the private sector and by the government sector. So I think this will end up being good in the long run.
No, Ankur, you're actually absolutely right, because that's something that we're also seeing. Thanks to Trump, India is actually coming more to the forefront. Even with the SEO summit that happened, I mean, China, Russia, Brazil, we're forming our ties, we're solidifying our ties and making ourselves independent from the US. And I think it's a great thing that's happening.
Parthiv, can I add something to that?
Please.
I think this is point in time for Indian industry to come together. Point in time when China said, not China, this is Japan, made in Japan. I think Japanese technology inside. That said a lot about the kind of quality TQM measures that went into it. This is time for us to catapult to that, made in India. I think that's where, if we are able to put it out there, that we are no longer, places where you manufacture just for the domestic market, but a lot of things which are happening are actually exports out there. This is time for Indian Inc. to come together, is what I would say. And maybe, as I said, disruption in the market, this is the best time that we are poised to take.
It's interesting you said that, is because India historically have been known as the cheaper alternative. How do you look at the positioning of India or Bharat going forward be looked as? Is it of quality? Is it of efficiency? Is it of innovation? And after you answer, I would also ask one of our international representatives who have joined us here. I'm going to pinpoint someone if no one raises their hand. I want your perspective on India. I want to know what you think about India and how it goes, just after you give your...
Sure. I was just reading up Just last month, we have grounded close to about 13 odd projects, which are pure play FDI, some good numbers. Month on month, we are seeing here in India, in places like Madhya Pradesh, places like Bihar attracting investment. You wouldn't have heard in the past, UP attracting large amounts of investment. Just Invest India facilitating is the number that I can tell you straightforward with. A lot is happening out there. So when you say, while it is changing, there is India, if you were to compare, for every dollar that is invested here versus invested in China in certain sectors, they say that the investment returns to them is close to between 4 to 5 years time, while here in India it takes between 7 8 years on an average. But there are some sectors where the market is very mature. Let's say the automotive sector, the pharma sector, the textile sector. These are sectors where we have done really well. There's a set of talent that's available. There's a set of skill. There is automation. There's a lot happened around it. Yes, there are certainly certain tech sectors, emerging sectors, India has been looked at. So we have certain cities that can be actually compared with a country abroad. We can't compare India on with Singapore. So the stats are very skewed. So you can compare a Bangalore to a Singapore on certain sectors, for example. So if we were to look at it from that dimension of what is it that we are trying to compare here, India is no longer a cheap, market for labor. It's no longer like that. People are looking at technical fiber that goes out from India in terms of exports, for example, and that sector is really looked at in the context of how things have shifted here in the East and Southeast Asian countries. So India is looked for today a progressive set of policies which are going to be in ground for almost about 10 15 years, at least a decade. Till Esther years, people used to look at India and say, the first time the foreign investor comes in, they ask, will this policy sustain for the next 10 years after your regime, after your 5 years? But I don't think it is any longer such a discussion today. There is an entire mechanism, there is transparency, a lot has changed. But in a very large country like ours, developing economy, there are far more complexities and there's much more to deal with. And we have still not arrived there, I would say, but this is the best moment. I think this is like a revolution. Everybody can take advantage of it.
Roshika, to the same question, he obviously has to say good things about India, but I want your view. Again, as World Bank, you are investing a lot in India, and I primarily think India is one of the greatest economies to make money. So I definitely think that is one of the primary reasons you're investing here. But besides that, is the narrative true? Is the brand India, brand Bharat, shifting from being just a cheap, accessible market to a more innovative, quality-driven market?
I would agree, actually. I think we saw with the China Plus One strategy that we saw a lot of movement, let's say, for phone parts and so forth to India. So we saw maybe cheaper components, but now we're seeing actually innovation. For example, we're seeing semiconductors being made by many, many industries getting into this for the first time. So we are seeing that, I guess disruption leads to innovation, and we have seen that in certain sectors. We're seeing the battery storage, very exciting innovation that's coming out of India. So I think it's not only from now because of the tariffs. I think for the last few years, the China Plus One is when this sort of innovation has started, and we're seeing it across the board. Of course, in this current environment, there'll be certain sectors that will be hit. I think the apparel, the gems, and so forth, when we're looking at exports. But we are seeing innovation here. We're seeing services now also being looked at differently. I mean, there is a domestic market, there is a regional market. I think, as it was mentioned, the silver lining of some of the geopolitics is that we're seeing these regional blocks being redefined. So I think that will help India in looking at markets and seeing what they can produce. So I think, short answer, I would agree that India is no longer just the cheaper alternative. Even if you look at pharma's sector, APIs or components that go into pharma, you're seeing more sophisticated manufacturing along the spectrum.
I want to reach out to any of our international delegates to share any comment. Anyone? Sir with mustard pants? Sir? No comments on India? Please, can someone give him a mic, please? You're in front, second row.
Fascinating discussion. My name is Joe Carey. I'm from New York. I'm part of the Rootbridge family. The first comment I would like you to make is please do not judge America just by Donald Trump. I ask you to keep that in mind. The second thing is I want to follow up on what my colleague and Nayan said, because I think it needs to be underscored. In chaos, there's opportunity. And what Nayan pointed out is that India is now looking at different ways of doing trade other than with the US. And to be honest with you, that's healthy. It's healthy for the US. It's healthy that there's competition for the US dollar, for the US market. And so I wanted to underscore what Nayan said. The last thing I would like to say is, going back to the United States, is I'm reminded of Winston Churchill's quote about Americans and America, which is America always does the right thing after we exhaust every other possibility. And we're in the process of exhausting every other possibility. So please don't give up on us. Thank you.
Thank you for your very candid and honest opinion. We will not judge US by Donald Trump, but some days we do. We enjoy, and we enjoy it, but it's in all jest and humor. We do recognize the importance of the US economy towards global trade and their contribution to share capital in developing so many nations, including India. So thank you very much. Going to you, Ankur, we speak about India's position, and while it has been a long journey, India has reached some place. In order to take the next leap of really being a transformative economy where people actively and blindly put money in, how important is ease of doing business as a businessman in India? What do you see as do you see it as a challenge? How has it improved? And what can the country do to not only allow Indians living in India to do business more, but also allow foreign nationals, international companies to come and set up shop here?
Let me also loop back to the previous discussion that we had on skills and being a low-cost economy, and how important is it for India to stay there or go up the value chain. I think it's very important for us to start realizing that the world is not going to stay where it is. And there are going to be other economies in the world who are going to challenge you on that low-cost positioning that we have. We need to climb up the skill ladder. We need to climb up the value chain in terms of manufacturing. Having said that, when you look at what is the possibility of doing that without active participation from the external world. So you need a lot of collaboration coming in. You need a lot of FDI coming in. You need a lot of Indians partnering in external markets so that we are able to get those market accesses. So ease of doing business becomes a very important paradigm. Whether we have improved, yes, we have. And there are several initiatives by the government which have certainly made life a little bit easier. But have we got there? No, certainly not. And there are a lot of things that we need to do. To start with, look at the number of regulations and compliances that one needs to do on a month-to-month, day-to-day basis. That number, that burden has to come down. The way that we look at laws and how we, on a day-to-day basis, look at contracts and enforcing those contracts. A lot of the investment which is coming in wants reliability. They want to know that, yes, if we have decided on something or if we have agreed on something, we can enforce that. So ease of business is certainly going to be a very, very important thing, because investment would look for defined returns. predictable returns, predictable stream of things. They need to know that the policy is going to be continuous. Several of these issues need to be addressed adequately for foreign investment to be far more comfortable and have that greater degree of conviction that we can do this with much more ease. And I'm sure we'll get there because I see that pace from the government. I see a lot of initiatives which are already planned, and we will get there in good time. And I have no doubt that we will be one of the most powerful economies 2047.
And yeah, please.
Go ahead.
Oh, after you.
Ankur, I would actually take it one step further. I actually truly believe India is no longer the back office of the world. I think we should be proud of that. That's definitely the way that it's going. And more importantly, I mean, I've been investing in India for almost 20 years. The quality of the entrepreneurs, the education, the maturity, it's I wouldn't even say on par with the Western world because it shouldn't be compared to that. It's on a different level, and I think we should all be proud of that. It's transforming, and you can feel it, you can see it. The pitch decks, everything in my side of the business at least is getting better and better. So I really think we're at the cusp of something big coming.
I just wanted to add a layer to this discussion. I think we've been talking about a macro perspective and larger businesses, but I think it's important to stop and remember that MSMEs are really the backbone of India as well. And I think we've seen growth in MSMEs in terms of being registered, in terms of actually finance for them as well. And I think that's a very important piece when we talk about development and Viksit Bharat. It's key to not forget, not just only focus on the big business, but look at this layer. And I think adding to that as well, I think when we talk about opportunities to look at even tier 2, tier 3 cities in India, we see a lot of, for example, agricultural production, but is there logistics, is there cold chain? Not necessarily. So how do we think also differently when we're looking at investing in India, when we're looking at as an investor, but even as big businesses coming into India? I think there's real opportunities that are still very underserved, that are profitable and are needed. So I just wanted to add that dimension to our dialogue.
And I think this topic is very important because ease of doing business is very crucial to developing the economy. And part of our closed room lunch discussion, one of the things that we discussed was that India has everything that's needed to make business easy. It's the culture of each state. It's the culture of each economy within India. To facilitate that better. And I think it's great that we already have the backbone in that sense set up to allow for it. And I think the more and more we are able to communicate this and encourage business activity within the government and within the bureaucracy, the more easier it will become for a lot of people to come and invest in different parts of the nation. You wanted to add something?
If I may add, I think a lot of time we tend to discuss what we are doing in India. I think we should also start tracking FDI out of India. And I think that's a very, very important metric because and we are beginning to see it, a lot of mid-size and larger firms have been doing for a long time, but a lot of mid-size firms are also now feeling more confident about going out and acquiring. And two reasons why it's very important. First, I think given where the world is today, there are good technologies that are easy to acquire. And second, I think that is the fastest way to move up the innovation curve. That is the fastest way to create access to customers that earlier you were not able to penetrate. And I think the combination of that with Indian entrepreneurship, Indian management can really be transformative, right? And I've seen that there are many examples. I'm on the board of GMM, and they actually did a reverse acquisition of their entity Fodler, and it was game changing for them. And I think the same we are seeing in many other mid-size plays in India.
While there's a lot to discuss, we are unfortunately out of time. As an Indian, I'm very proud where we stand today in 2025. I think India is at the pinnacle of growth, of exponential growth. And I'm glad to see so many people from so many countries coming here and contributing and helping us with that growth. And I think we can be rest assured that the Indian government, I don't speak on behalf of them, but I speak as a citizen, that the Indian government, whichever government it might be, is definitely there to encourage and boost economic output of this nation, because that's the only way 1.4 billion people can be not only moved up from low incomes, but improve their standard of life and improve their economic output towards the nation. So thank you everyone for joining me. It was a true pleasure having this discussion with the CEOs Forum. And over to you, Nidhi, to take the final concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, all our speakers, for the valuable insight. We're really honored and glad to have this panel with us today. Thank you, each of you. To conclude this forum, one message is very clear. India's path to 2047 will be defined by our ability to reimagine with courage, reform with consistency, and innovate with purpose. The journey ahead is not without challenges, but with collective resolve and shared vision. India is poised to transform into a global powerhouse, resilient, inclusive, and future-ready. And this panel has reassured that to us today. Let us carry today's insight forward as action and ensure that we celebrate 100 years of independence, and we also celebrate 100 years of leadership in shaping the world's future. Thank you. I would now request Mr. Neotia to felicitate our distinguished panelists with a token of appreciation, please. Mr. Ankur Patni, sir, please. Mr. Nayan Srivastava. Ms. Roshika Singh. Mr. Karthikeyan. And Mr. Vivek Bhatia, please. And if I may request Ms. Roshika to do the same to Parthiv, sir, please. Excuse me for the gender discrimination. Thank you. Thank you so much. As we, I think we should all be seated because we have another, power pack sessions coming up. This session will continue as we conclude this engaging session on India's future. It is very equally important to look at India's expanding role in global trade. We now move on to our next session, Export Gate, India, Greece, Cyprus, focusing on trade opportunities and collaboration. For this, it is my honor Thank you. Thank you. So it is my honor to invite Mr. Leftrius Lakoyanis, Head of Transaction Banking and Assistant General Manager, Eurobank Limited, to address us and share his insights on strengthening trade and investment linkages between India, Greece, and Cyprus. Sir, please, can we have you on the stage?
Hello.
Hello, hi. Over to you. All yours.
Thank you. Can I have the presentation as well? Hello, can I have the presentation as well? Do you know how it works? Not yet.